Hi. Welcome to Book Pop.
I'm Molly Fish.
And I'm Jamie Anderson. And it's a special episode
because we are both so excited. We're going to talk over each other. Do you get to intro her or do I get to intro her?
Okay, you can do it.
You can do the intro, but I would love to introduce Jane Rotunda.
Oh, thanks.
From the Wisconsin Book Festival. We are so excited to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
We are going to be talking all about the Wisconsin Book Festival today.
Yes.
Hope everybody's ready for a fun preview episode of the Fall Festival event in October. But first, we want to talk to you a little bit about your story and how you got here. And I know Jamie is much more prepared with some questions to talk to you about. So I guess
now it's my turn.
Now I'll let you go, I guess.
Well, again, Jane is the director of the Wisconsin Book Festival. I know you were announced as the new director in February of 2023. What has your journey to that position been like?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on this amazing podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And the store, and it's such a pleasure to be here. So amazing opportunity to work with you all in so many different ways. It's really fun. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit about my journey. So let's see. I went to school for journalism in Madison, and then I graduated and moved to New York. And for some reason, I just keep getting pulled back to Madison because it's a great town and there is so much to offer, including amazing independent, locally owned bookstores, as well as the book festival and so many other things, of course. But yeah, so I came back and I worked in public radio for a long time at Wisconsin Public Radio. And I did a bunch of different jobs there. I raised money and I did marketing. I was the assistant director of the Ideas Network when that was part of their programming. And I was the executive producer of The Larry Mueller Show for a little while. So It was a really fun and interesting mix of both programming and development. And I learned a lot and had amazing colleagues. And then I had an opportunity to move to New Zealand. So again, I went away and went to New Zealand, and it was incredible. And then it was time to kind of maybe think about what's next in life. And there was again Madison staring at us. So we returned, and it's funny because 2 days, kind of almost en route back to the United States, someone sent me this job and the book festival job and said, oh, you should consider applying. And now here we are. What is it, like 19 months later, something like that? And it's been really, really fun. The journey to the book festival, as well as now being in the book festival world for a little over a year. I cannot say enough good things about the literary community in Madison. I just keep thinking what we're doing here is different. It's special. It's personal. I think there's just so many connections that we're growing and we're taking an advantage of partnerships, and the university and people who truly care about the content and the viability of reading and books and writing and conversation and community. So yeah, I'm very, very happy to be in this moment specifically today on the journey, because I think it really represents how we do come together as a community and through books and reading, and it's timeless, it's universal and feels really special.
There's nothing that Madison people love more than thinking about how special we are, but it's because it's true.
It's true.
So I feel like you are a true Madisonian in that you really appreciate how special it is.
Totally.
Welcome
Molly.
as a native. I can recognize you and give you like official Madisonian status.
Thank you.
So absolutely. Well earned.
That was well earned just with that statement alone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we should probably talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Book Festival because it happens year round. There's always events going on, but we really have our fall celebration. And this year it is October 17th through the 20th.
Yes.
And yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So I think it's really great that you mentioned, Jamie, that it is all year round. I love that the festival is there for readers because we read all year round, and it's nice to be able to come together, meet an author, And it also affords us the opportunity when authors do publish a book, like we can catch them right when they're on tour, and there's lots of momentum and energy behind the book that's coming out. And, you know, if you're gone for the 4-day celebration, which is amazing and you shouldn't be, but if you do miss it, like, we're still here for you.
You have that great space up there all year round. Like, why not use it and fill it with great programming?
Yeah, we're so lucky. So back to the 4-day and in general, our programming, the majority of it happens in Central Library in Madison. So it's so amazing that we have the relationship that we do with the library, and we work together and use that space. As Molly was saying, it's really beautiful. It's open. It's got big windows. There's just good energy. And also you walk through a library to get to the book festival, which you really can't get much better than that.
Right.
So yeah. Okay. So back to Jamie and asking about the fall celebration. I'm so excited for this year. I think there's a couple cool milestones or markers that are making me feel especially grateful about this year. So we have 57 total events, and that's you know, on the higher level of events for 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
It's so many.
Whoa. We can do this.
Right? Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that just the volume speaks to how many authors want to come to Madison because, yes, again, we are very special. And also, like, the community is here for it. We are there to support this level of programming. And the reason why we're able to do 57 events is because we're partnering with 3 local bookstores. We're partnering with 3 off-site venues. And we're, of course, partnering with tons and tons of people to be in conversation and be part of the actual programming and events and hosting them and the authors and the books that we're talking about. So it's a showcase of kind of where we're at and ready to receive that kind of level of events. And then the other part is it's 57 events, but it's 69 authors, which I think is even more incredible because it's authors talking to authors. And they're really intentional, like curated conversations where either they already have a relationship or their 2 books overlap in themes and content. And so I think there's just some really nice opportunity to really dig into a particular topic or conversation. The other thing that's making me really excited is we've been partnering with the Science Festival for about a decade. And this year we have 15, we call them STEM-related book festival and science festival events. And that's like double than ever, the most we've ever had. So, I mean, we're just like really growing that partnership and taking it to really cool, interesting topics. They're sciencey, but they're also just daily like news you can use kind of topics and information, including one about refrigeration. I mean, how many times a day do you open up your refrigerator, in relationship to food, to sleep, and thinking about how we kind of observe and take in the natural world too, on a daily basis is another theme. So I'm excited for that too. Yeah. And I think there's just a lot of representation of our specialized, really local expertise folks coming to talk with someone who's also an expert in a field and has written a book. And I think the conversation that those 2 people can have really shows the content and what you can learn from the book, but then brings it specifically to a relatable perspective in the state that we live in the city we live in, and the experiences that we're having. So yeah, those are the things that are like really like making me feel excited and joyful about what we have in store.
Those are some of the ones I'm looking forward to the most because we are going to be at all those off-site locations as Lake City Books. Jamie and I are both going to be the ones selling books at those, Discovery Institute. So a lot of these nonfiction events, right?
Yes.
The Wisconsin Historical Society and the Arts and Lit Lab. So one of the ones that came to top of my mind when you just said the local partnership and conversation partner with an author and how that like adds context. I'm really excited for Friday night at the Discovery Institute with Daniel Levitan doing I Heard There Was a Secret Chord. That's his book, with Ben Sidran.
Yes.
Local jazz legend. I mean, international jazz legend, but who
Truly.
happens to be from Madison and in Madison still. And so the fact that they're going to be talking about this book about music and science, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait. That's going to be such a fantastic conversation. And that book is going to be so cool. And that book is already out and for sale, by the way.
Yes.
But we will be there selling it at the Discovery Institute. So I feel like that's one of the great examples of something that normally we are fiction girlies. Like we are always so excited about the fiction events, but in looking into and researching all the books for these offsite events, at least I speak for myself, I've been getting really hype about some of these. Spooky Lakes is another one that I'm really excited about. Lake City Books, come on. I already talked to Gio on the phone once, and I was like, I'm so excited for your event, I can't even tell you.
She's so excited.
Great.
She's so engaged.
Super
I know
engaged.
she's just going to like share so many fascinating tidbits, and like basically I'm going to need you to take in all of the info because I probably won't be able to be there myself. And
We'll
really
do like
excited.
a debrief after, and we can give you the lowdown on all the nonfiction events on the offsites. That one is Saturday morning at the Wisconsin Historical Society. So Jamie's going to be selling at that.
Yes,
I will.
Nice.
Yes.
So yeah, anything you're looking forward to, Jamie, of the events?
I couldn't think of it off the top of my head. What's like the turning?
The stone
Stone
one.
one.
Oh, Turning to Stone.
Turning
and
to
that
Stone.
follows Spooky. Good segue because
Yes.
it follows Spooky Lakes.
That's right. That one's also Saturday.
Yes, at noon at Wisconsin Historical Society. And she has Wisconsin connections and ties. She is excited to come back. She did part of her PhD work here. And it's basically just like how you can get wisdom and like tidbits from rocks. And I mean, that's
Obsessed,
incredible.
Right?
Yeah. Like,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Well, there's a funny story too, because Jamie was talking to a customer about that book, looked it up, was looking into it, and was like, okay, I think we need to order this book. So we ordered it for the store to have. And then that was before you had announced the fall festival.
Oh, okay.
And
Perfect.
so we already were like getting excited about this book and thinking about it. And as soon as I saw that on there and that it was one of our offsite events, I was like, Jamie, look, it's the rock book. It's
We
the
got
rock
real
book.
excited.
We got really excited about that one.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're excited for her. And honestly, that whole series at the Wisconsin Historical Society is Wisconsin tied authors, and also kind of more nature themed, except for the last one, which is also really cool, which is like an old, it's called Extra.
Eat all about it.
Exactly.
So excited for that one too.
So old recipes, like, and kind of two Wisconsin authors presenting about the history of food and recipes and stuff, and specific to Wisconsin.
And specifically, like what was published in recipes published in newspapers, which was one of the main ways to
Yes.
get recipes out, and how they would like get popularized before there were, a lot of mass market cookbooks.
Yes.
And so I think that is so cool. And looking through
Yes.
some of the images in that book is absolutely fascinating. Like the history of food and how things trends got started in Wisconsin, and like certain recipes. And we always talk about it. And I don't know, like I wonder if they're going to talk about just like fish fries or certain potato salads, or like whatever is going to be things that we still probably have origins back then. And it's so fascinating.
Totally.
I can't wait to dig into that book.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And I know that they're just going to be really fun. And I don't know.
Great
just
stories,
Great
I bet.
stories. Yeah.
I feel really good about my positioning for being at the Wisconsin Historical Society. and all
I know.
those. You're lucky.
Yep.
It's a great one. Everyone should come hang out with Jamie at the Wisconsin Historical Society on October 19th and go to all these cool events.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just like a tiny little sliver. But I think, I guess now we've talked a lot about nonfiction. So maybe since you two are fiction girlies, as
give
you
us some of your
self-identified.
faves.
Well, actually wanted to hear maybe some of your faves looking at the list, but I can throw one out in the meantime. Okay, Nicola Yoon, and One of Our Kind is on Friday night, and this is like Get Out meets Stepford Wives kind of gothic thriller. I think I haven't read it yet, but I think it's going to be really, really great. She's an amazing writer. And I think, I feel like this book is going to give perspective and also just take us on a kind of a crazy winding journey. And it's a free book giveaway. So
Amazing.
The Wisconsin Book Festival is really fortunate in that we take the opportunity to carve out some of our budget annually to be able to provide books for attendees at select events throughout the year and also during the fall celebration. So yeah, I think that's if you want to experience like a really just joyful moment where you smile and there's really nothing more to it, it's giving out a book to someone who's coming to an event and telling them that no, it's just theirs. They get to keep it. And by the way, the author is going to answer questions at the end of their talk, and then also you can come up to them and have your book signed by them, it's just kind of these extra touches and these organic moments that I think make the whole like event more than just going and sitting and taking it in. You're actually like a part of it, and you get to participate in this really special way.
Not to mention the joy of just getting a free book.
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, it's special. It really is. So we're really fortunate to be able to do that and excited to be able to do that.
I have a question for both of you, and I will talk about a fiction book I'm very excited about at the festival. But I've been thinking about this a lot because when I go to author events, I feel like there's a couple different main ways to experience an author event. I've read the book or I'm a big fan of this author already, and I'm really excited to go hear them talk in person and kind of put a face to the words a little bit. Or I'm going to go to an author talk and I don't really know much about this book or about this author, and I'm going to learn something and maybe become a fan of theirs. And I'm curious about it, or I'm curious about the topic. And I feel like I get a lot of value out of the latter one. Like whenever I go to a book event and I'm like, I don't really know who this is, or no matter how small the book or the event of just like a casual reading, I feel like I always feel more connected to humanity after author events. But I find myself really only wanting to go if I know them or have read the book. You know what I mean? But I get more out of it almost if I don't know them and haven't read the book.
I totally know what you mean. And I think it has to do a lot about expectations, right?
Definitely.
So like where you've taken the time to read the book and you really know the author, then maybe you develop some expectations. And so in your mind, it's almost as,
Great point.
When you read a book, it's like, if you're familiar, like you've heard some things, you might already have some expectations. But if you just go and you're spontaneous and you're just totally open-minded, I think that allows you to absorb things that maybe your expectations might like filter out for you without even really,
that's
purposefully doing it. And I just think that there's something really special, like you said, though, about both ways. Like it's really cool to open yourself up to something that you don't have expectations around, but then also to see how your expectations and your interpretations hold up when you do have them and you do have like an experience reading a book. Because then you can actually examine those and you get sort of a little bit deeper into like maybe thinking about why you thought it was going to be like this, or, tease out those reactions and those emotions when you have a deeper connection, I suppose.
It's a great point. I didn't think about my expectations going into it being different.
Absolutely. I think I have to echo both of you because I've volunteered at the Wisconsin Book Festival before, not knowing what authors I'm going to be there for, and then getting to sit in on them and listen to them with no expectations, not knowing what book they're talking about, but also just getting to hear their passion and anybody talking about something they're passionate about, like you can't help but be interested in that. And I also come from kind of a perspective where anybody who's written a book is like a god to me. I mean, what a feat.
It is impressive. Yeah.
Yes. So
I think it's really good to pause here and like underscore a bold italic that like for real, it's amazing to write a book, and it's amazing that then this person is, you know, coming to be able to like talk about it and to take that, like that's what a journey, as you were talking, asking me about my journey, what a journey to write a book, but then to then go out and keep putting yourself out there and the book out there. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, getting it published, having people read it, and like taking feedback from that, like you are really putting yourself out there as a writer.
Do you have a favorite fiction book you want to, or one you're excited about?
Well, I mean, I think we know what my favorite one is, but I am really excited about Rachel Kushner's Creation Lake.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
No, I have a different one, so you can talk about that one.
Well, I started listening to it and I was like, I got to read it. I need it in my hands. But it's like environmental terrorist, and she's kind of undercover infiltrating this group of people.
But kind of more like literary than thriller, but it's almost like this genre blend is what I've been hearing from people that is kind of makes it this own unique thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to hear her talk about that. If I can get there.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna be pretty busy that weekend, but
yeah.
We'll put little spies in everywhere so that we can hear feedback.
Yeah. I guess I'll interject and remind people that we record our events.
Great reminder.
So and that is happening at nearly all offsites. There might be a couple where we're not able to make it happen. And then it is definitely happening at Central Library for all events. So if you aren't able to make the festival, or you have to make a tough call and you have to go to one and you can't go to the other, please look back on our website. Give us a few weeks after we wind down from the the great fall celebration, but it'll be there and we'll keep you posted on when we get them up on our website. And it's honestly a really, sometimes Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever you're streaming these days is great, but like sometimes it's actually really nice. Like I've found myself going back to some events and just kind of taking it in and enjoying it from home in an unexpected kind of way. It's just as good as turning on a streaming service, I think.
I was going to say, I think this should be the new streaming service trend is actually the Wisconsin Book Festival website. It's free, people. You don't have to pay your $17.99 a month or whatever ridiculous amount.
Fees.
Yeah, no subscription fees. Just get that entertainment anytime, day or night.
And again, I guess that's another good opportunity to remind everyone that all of our events are free and open to the public. And I think that is incredible. I mean, we're having these literary giants and also amazing local talent and everything in between who are coming to Madison, and they're going to present and talk about a book, and all you have to do is show up. There's no pre-registration. There's no entry. As few barriers to entry as we could possibly, make for you. You just have to get there. So, and you'll find that once you get there, I think you're going to find amazing people who are so happy and excited that you're there that you're just going to feel really glad that you made that trip out and you decided to kind of get into this community, and we might have you hooked.
Definitely.
We should probably also mention the free coffee.
Yes.
Since we're talking about free stuff.
Yes. Go ahead, Molly.
Well, I was going to say, I have a gripe about this because when you were announcing the coffee cart is back at the author reveal party, I was like, cool, there's going to be coffee in the library. You did not say the F word, which is that it is free.
I missed.
And I was like, but I think everybody knew, and I was the only one that didn't.
I should have been clearer.
And I was like, so Jamie told me later, like, no, it's free coffee.
Free coffee.
And I was like, what do you mean it's free coffee? She's like, how do you not understand this? There's just a cart there and you can walk up and they will make you a latte. And I was like, it's not. So when I heard free coffee, I thought it was like conference coffee of like you pump a.
Yeah, so I want to shout out
carafe. But that's so I was like, oh my God, we are not publicizing this enough that it is free coffee. People will come for that.
Cafe Domestique is coming.
And it's Cafe Domestique. Like, get out of here.
Again, kind of just back to that idea that like they make amazing coffee. Their baristas are incredible. They're imaginative. The flavors are local, and they're really, really just great. So we have the pleasure of working with them, and the book festival funds the, you know, free coffee
Of course,
for
yeah.
and the
They
foundation
are having to donate it all.
Yes. So, but it's awesome. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Central Library on the 3rd floor. And it's just, again, when you're in between events and you just want to kind of hang out, maybe you want to peruse the books that are for sale, or you're just looking to, you know, get a little caffeine hit before you know, hit your afternoon or whatever. It's there for you. And I think it's going to be really fun and delicious, and we're excited about
Fabulous
it.
is what I would call it. This is only like the second year you've done this?
This is the second year. So we're coming back to this year with it again. And it was amazing.
You got really good feedback last year.
It was amazing to see. I know that like there were some organic moments that I even witnessed where like an author was grabbing a cup of coffee, and then also someone who reads that author was like right behind them. They're like, "It's that? Yep. Oh, okay." Like play cool. Like, so I think gets at that, you know, those little in between moments that you don't expect, or you just kind of you can't plan for, that are really pretty unique and fun. Yeah.
Are there any other big changes that you feel like you've been able to put your stamp on the book festival these last 2 years?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm really proud of is the integration of the festival. Has always worked with all local bookstores, but I mean, Lake City Books is relatively new and doing amazing.
We started about the same time you
Exactly.
did, actually. We opened April 2023.
So folding you all in, and then adding in Mystery to Me and A Room of One's Own, and having all the sellers at both our standalone events and during the fall celebration it just feels good. It feels really good, and it's really fun because I get to work with 3 amazing different bookstores that are here for the community and show up for the community in different ways. And I think that makes the festival stronger and better and more representative. So I'm proud of that.
We are grateful for that, and also proud of you for taking that step and just continuing to support even more local businesses, including ourselves, Lake City Books. So thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It truly is.
I didn't even mean to tee you up for that, but I am really happy that I did.
Yeah.
No, we love being a part of it.
Seriously, we're so thrilled to be part of it.
And it's really great because people who come to these bookstores as customers, when they show up to the book festival, they're like, "Oh, it's so great to see you." I know like so many people know you both, Molly and Jamie, and they're like, "Oh, hey, like what's going on?" And like I think it just makes that connection even stronger, and kind of shows how the festival isn't, I mean, it's there for people in these very unique and fun ways, and as are the bookstores too. So like it's kind of like a crossover of people's lives and like their bubbles that they're kind of living in. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it just goes to show how strong the literary community in Madison really is.
Yes.
Yeah. We can support many bookstores and many author events, and people come out.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. I did want to talk a little bit more about the programming because you mentioned how you integrated so much more STEM. What's that like, diversifying your programming for this weekend?
So we try to be as, you know, representative and cast a wide net where it's like there's as close as possible to something for everyone. You know, it's hard to actually say that for sure. So I think this year it skews a little more nonfiction, and I have the numbers: 30 nonfiction events and 27 fiction.
Wow.
And so there's just a few more nonfiction than fiction.
Pretty half and half, but I would expect it to skew more fiction. So I think that's cool. That it's taking the other way a little.
It is kind of cool, and honestly, I think Madison, because of the university, it's kind of a nonfiction town, and I think this year with, you know, news cycles and election, I think there's also a lot of conversation that people are eager to learn about and have kind of a civil dialogue on these topics ahead of the presidential election too. So for those reasons, and then the science festival continuing to grow with them, it just kind of it landed that way. And the reason why I think it's pretty cool is because it's really stuff that, again, on a daily basis, you can kind of tap into and think about. And I think that's sort of the best kind of science in a way.
Relatable science.
Yeah.
And things that even if you're a non-scientist, any plebe in the street like me can still get a lot out of a talk on a science book for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it speaks back to like the spontaneous approach too. Like no one is asking you to have a lab in this topic, you know, like it's just something that you can probably take away a couple tidbits and you can think like, wow, this research is going on in our state or close by. Someone is an expert on this topic that's like nationally or internationally being like really talked about. I mean, agriculture being one of the things that we're talking about a lot about food politics and agriculture and stuff during the fall celebration for some of these events. And again, you know, we interact and engage with food every day, and that's something that you might think about and you might remember something you learned during the fall celebration at one of these events, and it might shift your behavior or just make you think differently about kind of how you consume.
Knowledge is power.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. We like data.
Yeah.
Any other stats you want to share about the festival?
Yeah. Okay. So I will say we have 27 authors with Wisconsin ties. So that's, again, a really almost half strong showing of Wisconsin authors, which is just fun to see. I mean, and it keeps going back to the fact that like there is this community here and amazing talent here. So I'm really excited about that. I think another thing that I want to point out, it's not just adult stuff. So in the morning on Saturday, we partner with the library. They have a We Read Youth Voices writing contest annually. And so part of the fall celebration programming is on Saturday morning. That anthology is released. And the winners get a chance to be like presenting authors, and the anthology, the families of all of the youth who have written something can come and hear the winners read, but then also just pick up their copy of the anthology. And this is all going to be swirling amidst like these amazing, you know, authors who have made a career out of writing. So I think that's like pretty inspirational and cool. And then right following that We Read Youth Voices event is a youth-centered event with Carla Arenas Valenti, who wrote La Lotteria, but then now has another book out called Lola. And it's kind of right around that age, for that age group that we'll be presenting. So I think families can really find a nice Saturday morning of just learning and being in the library. It's pretty cool. And that's a book giveaway as well. So.
That's amazing.
Yes, yeah.
I love the through line there of these young authors and then being right next to events in the same building as these published, established authors, and they get to get that same kind of recognition on that almost same platform.
Exactly.
And they could see really, hopefully, a future for themselves if that's something that they are interested in, and just more authors, more readers in the world is never a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, the energy, I remember last year, and this was something new that we did last year, so folding it again this year. Just the energy and excitement were like a perfect representation of the impact of like how books, how reading and writing, like no matter what your age, can really just like make spirits sing and souls feel very full. So I think that's pretty cool. And we're really fortunate, again, to have that library program and that literary community that like honors and respects our youth in this way, because they are super talented. They have great imaginations and they're creative. And I think, you know, come and show up, and I think you'll be hard pressed not to just smile and kind of feel like the warmth. Again, free, open to the public. It's October 17th through the 20th is our big 4-day celebration, but the festival's here for you year round. And come and check us out. And if you already know about us and if you already plan to come, bring a friend.
Yeah. Are you still looking for volunteers?
Oh, this is a good stat.
Yeah.
Okay. We will totally take volunteers, because the more the merrier. And we find that, you know, there's always room for someone to help out in some space. We are doing some record-breaking numbers with our volunteers.
Wow.
So that's another thing that I think in the last couple years, especially just post-pandemic and that outreach, I've really been pushing for just more folks to get involved and to be a part of what we're doing. And we have 86 volunteers this year.
Wow.
Yeah, which is the most ever. And I think that feels like a testament to what the work we're doing, as well as like the community that's here and showing up to support
People
it.
really want to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I didn't get to talk about the fiction book that I'm excited about. So I'll plug that and then I will transition us.
Yes.
So I have not read this book yet, but it is on my list. And that is The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge Lev Grossman fan. I read The Magicians and like multiple times in high school and college, and just like loved that, you know, adult Harry Potter world of like a school for magical people, but like people with real problems and like teens and 20-somethings having to deal with that. And I thought he was such a unique writer and storyteller. And I also love a thick fantasy book. So The Bright Sword is a Arthurian legend retelling that is 600 plus pages, I believe. And I eyeball it at the store all the time. I can't even tell you, but I only allow myself to read so many 600 plus page fantasy books a year because that's all I would do. And I really have to diversify what I read to stay on top of buying and recommendations for customers who don't, that's like a pretty niche thing. Mm-hmm. But I think that's going to be my next one because I'm so excited about that particular book.
I am too. So much so that it's the grand finale,
right?
For the 4-day. And we planned it that way.
It's a great grand finale.
And he I think he took like 10 years.
10 years, yes.
Write and
research
research this book.
Podcast where he was interviewed. And I'm more
and
curious
did long sword training. Yes. Did you listen to that podcast?
Yes.
See, I can't listen to that because I will.
You haven't read it yet.
Well,
so.
Then also I will need to read it immediately after listening to it. I've been like avoiding hearing anything about it.
Yeah.
So that one's Sunday then?
Sunday at 1:30, and that closes out the festival. So
that's going to be a great one. Mm-hmm. And there's also another book that we were all very excited about, so much so that we decided to read it before this podcast so that we could do a mini book club about it. And that is Margots Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. So here is our disclaimer. We have all read this book. We will attempt to avoid some of the juiciest plot points. But if you are a person who doesn't like spoilers and you have not yet read Margots Got Money Troubles, maybe you want to pause here and come back and listen after you have read it. If you don't really mind some spoilers or you just want to get into it as like a little preview for the Rufi Thorpe event, which will be, she's coming to the book festival.
Mm-hmm. So Saturday, October 19th at 6 p.m. at Central Library. And she's going to be in conversation with Christina Clancy.
Who we love.
Who we love. Let's just give it up all the love for
Absolutely.
Christina Clancy, who is an amazing book festival supporter and obviously local author and talent, and has a forthcoming book.
The Snowbirds.
The Snowbirds.
Pre-order now, lakecitybooks.com.
Exactly. And Christina, she does an amazing job really digging in and making authors feel super comfortable and like they can just kind of, share. So I think it's going to be a great conversation and really fun.
Yeah. I have planned this out because I'm done at the Wisconsin Historical Society at 5:30. So I have 30 minutes.
You can make it. You can honestly grab a sandwich and still make it.
Yes, I will be there.
You got to pack the books in your car first. There's some, we can't just drop everything and leave.
Okay, so I'll at least have 15 minutes to make it a few blocks.
I think you can do it too.
I can do it.
I think you can do it.
Yeah.
So I guess let's get into Margot.
Okay, who wants to do the synopsis?
Oh, good question.
One of you two should do
Go for it, Jamie.
Okay, so Margot is a 20-year-old community college student who has an affair with her married English professor. And she gets pregnant, and he wants nothing to do with it. And she decides to keep it. and it's her experiences and her journey, shall we say, having a baby and developing a support system and getting an income and
everything, life and yes. family, et cetera, throws at you on a daily basis.
Yes.
Whoa.
And it's hilarious to me that the blurb on the front is, there's a couple blurbs here that I think are really interesting. So, an audacious, wildly funny, completely unpredictable novel by a writer so singular it's hard to compare to anyone else. That's Kevin Wilson. A hilarious novel about making the most of what you've got. That's Emma Straub. And I was thinking about all of this, being like, I don't think I didn't find it that funny.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So like that's my first hot take is I really liked it. I read it in a day, literally yesterday, and I couldn't put it down, and I felt a lot of feels throughout. Like it's not like I didn't find it to be, darkly humorous at some points, but I certainly don't think that wildly funny and hilarious are like the top line blurbs that I would put. So I was just like, that's my initial that's my overall, and I'm curious what you guys think about that.
You first, Jamie.
Okay. Well, I have some little.
Maybe Jane should go first.
Or
I have lots of feelings.
We're gonna
about
unpack it with Jamie. Jamie's gonna unpack this.
Right. So, I mean, as somebody who had a child at 18 years old, I felt so many things that Margot was going through. Society's questioning and views of you as a young mom. How there is very little support unless you are, you have a strong family who's there for you. And
Margot
doesn't. And also you have to take care of this small child and you don't have an income. You're constantly crying. And then you have to stop and get your shit together and get back to work. So, like, I feel with her desperation. I feel with her, like, constant creativity and, like, I need to make this work. And also, like, finding her people finally was really moving to me. But I said, like, last week, I'm stressed out as hell about this book because I would read it and then I'd have to get up 20 minutes later and be, like, walking around and, like, shake it out a little bit because it's very real and it's very raw. But I loved it. It took me a long time to read it because I had to keep putting it down.
Sure.
But I loved it.
So I'm with both of you in the sense of liking it and loving it and thinking that it was kind of billed a little bit differently than what I found in the pages and in the relationships and in the characters. So I would describe it, as like tender, but also like fierce, like, and tender because I think, Molly, what you're saying of just like these moments, it's just like humans are tender and relationships are tender, and then fierce in the sense that like Margot is insanely fierce, like she will not stop, and that just felt like a theme that I kind of kept coming back to and thinking about when I thought about her and the way she approached just pretty much from page 1 till the end, So, yeah. And I think the other thing that I kept feeling surprised about was reminding myself that Margot was 20 years old.
Yes.
So she is incredibly wise and seemingly mature and like, and I kept having to say, like, she's only 20 years old, and like she's doing all of this like pretty savvy stuff. I mean, she's also like, yes, she is creating content for OnlyFans, but she's like writing scripts, which is, right. I mean, that's not.
And filming skits and like developing a whole storyline that intrigues thousands of people enough to give her money.
So, like, Margot's got money troubles, but Margot's got insane skill and maturity and, like, fierceness as well.
And I wonder if part of it was like a little bit of Rufi Thorpe bleeding into the character of Margot, because there's also this perspective changing happening throughout the book where Margot will like break the fourth wall and say hey reader, I'm going to write about this part in third person because it's really hard for me. Or she will be, and then sometimes it will be first person. And I feel like there was this like, it almost kind of kept throwing me off a little bit when it would do that, like kind of keeping me off kilter. And then also it made you think again. It brought to the forefront like the construct of this, and like that there's an author making those decisions of what parts to show different ways. But I will say the thing that I did really love about the character of Margot, because she was so wise, and part of me was like, this doesn't feel like a 20-year-old. But at the beginning when she was saying like, I didn't really make decisions to like have this affair, right? I was like, that feels like a 20-year-old.
Yes.
You don't make like well thought out decisions. You just like do, and you kind of are like floating. And she describes this life where she like doesn't have a lot of agency.
Right.
And she's just kind of like going with whatever people are doing and what is expected of her, and it's only with choosing to have this baby that she like decides something. And then she starts really showing growth and like making more decisions and having more agency right throughout, and that grows and grows and grows to the end where, spoiler alert, she's like deciding to run her own business as a consultant for online content, because she's done so well at it. And I feel like that is the pinnacle of like agency and development, is running your own thing. Absolutely. So I loved that part of it, and the fact that they showed she was a great student, like an English student writing really great papers, such that her professor noticed her even though she never spoke in class. So she obviously did have this creative mind, and she had absorbed all these stories. And then because otherwise you'd be like, how is she so good at writing all this stuff? But I feel like it was set up that she has that kind of mind, even though she wasn't really using it for anything at the time, other than like writing English papers. And
I think, that shift in her having this agency and like deciding to just change and kind of mature, the other thing that she did was she cut out these nasty people who were controlling her. She was allowing to have agency, over them. Being the friend, is it Becca?
Yeah.
Kind of just this friend that was really never on her side, and like kind of obviously complex and has her own issues that then she sort of just like put onto Margot, and Margot just sort of always absorbed it. And then of course the professor and baby daddy Mark, and kind of clearing, like deciding I'm making a change and I'm clearing these two people kind of like out of my life. I think that was also like a marker of this
and
big
even
shift.
her mom, when they would kind of go through on and off periods of like talking to each other, not talking to each other throughout the book, and some of those were her decision, some of those weren't. But like that is another, and that's kind of like tough, where she even talks about, I know I can't just cut my mom out of my life. Right. I have to figure that one out.
Right.
But she at least could take a break from it and try to figure out what is the right way for us to have a relationship.
Which is like ultimate maturity, I think.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I really loved I want to talk about the dad character.
Well, I was going to ask, who was your favorite character?
Okay. Oh.
Well, mine's the dad.
I figured. I loved
Jinx. Jinx, Dr. Jinx, he's a former professional wrestler who was like minorly famous, and then he was a manager of other wrestlers, and he had another family, so he was never like a present father figure for Margot. He would just kind of show up and be with them for like a weekend every once in a while, and her mom was always kind of hoping that he would leave his wife and come live with them. And he was also having other affairs and had a drug problem due to all of the injuries he had as a wrestler. And so he was using pain meds, and then he started abusing heroin and abusing pain meds. But then this character he also then would go through these cycles of rehab and would try to show up. So I thought she did such a great job of painting a realistic person with a lot of these characters who are not good or bad, but just have flaws or an addiction. And he even has these little like, he kind of goes on these little monologue like speeches, and Margot would say that like, oh, Dad's getting like philosophical. But he would say like, this is all a cycle, and we can't freak out too much when I relapse, because then I'll freak out, and I can't put too much on my current state of sobriety. I have to just keep going. And it's a cycle, and it's like never going to stop. And it was both this really sad way of thinking of it and a really realistic way of thinking of it, because he does relapse in this book, and he does also really shows up for Margot in a way that A, he never has, and B, her mom never did, despite being there for her and raising her. And I just loved their relationship and how it unfolded and how it started off. Like, so he needed a place to live. He's moving in with her. He's kind of helping with the baby. But he also is this weird character who's like OCD and cleaning the whole house and would stay locked in his room and sleeps on the floor. And I just I loved all the little details, like when he bought the tree and he brought it home. And he put it in his room, and that's now the only other thing in his room other than like hundreds of books and a sleeping bag on the floor and a little tree in the corner. And he had you at hundreds of books. He did have me at hundreds of books. I was like, that's also what I would live with, a tree and hundreds of books. But I'd probably have a really cozy bed to curl up with. But I thought his arc, like he had a lot of arc, and her kind of the relationship they developed and uncovering his tenderness but then he still had these flaws, very obvious flaws. But then he was great with the baby, and
he becomes such a supporter of Margot and like helping her with her figure out her persona for OnlyFans and develop her storyline.
Because he did that for wrestling, like managing wrestling people, and he basically is a lot of the book is thinking about perception of and persona, right? And how people see you and playing to people's expectations of you. Yes. And I loved that he helped coach her on that and taught her all these different roles of like, you're a face or you're a heel, you're a bad guy or a good guy. And there's also, it helped her almost gain confidence too, to have a persona, which as a performer, I understood a lot of what she was going through in terms of like, oh, this is giving me confidence as a regular person in my regular life, just to have like an alter ego almost. And so I loved that he helped her with that. And then I think I've read like a couple reviews or just, Goodreads type reviews where people are like, her dad is helping her with her porn. And I was like, that's not at all how I took it.
Right. Yeah.
And it was more that like, he's helping her, he has a lot of resistance to this too, but he's realizing like this is all entertainment and he's not prudish the way that a lot of people in her life are. And he's not judgmental the way a lot of people in her life are. And so I feel like they offer that to each other as this lack of judgment about, like, she even talks about, I've been really judging him about his relapse and his drug use. And if I take that away and like realize he's still my dad and all that good stuff that he did is still real, even if he's whether he's using or not. Like, I just thought that was a great education for all of us in not judging each other and in
supporting
each other and finding positivity and I don't know, just love in a tough place.
I think the communication between the two of them
was
remarkable. Like something to strive for.
Totally.
Like, and I think that's why all the things that you have just described between their relationship and the dad and who Margot is. And that to me, I kept coming back to just how real and honest and direct. And it was in the moment a lot of the time too. It was not like, oh, I'm going to try to tuck this away and we'll talk about it another time. They really it was right there always. And they both participated in that. And it was inspirational in a way.
Absolutely.
It was. They spoke very directly.
Yeah.
And worked through things like a lot in real time. And it's almost like we always talk about, you get mad at characters and you're like, just have an honest conversation with each other and you will figure it out. And they were doing that all the time. And it's so satisfying to read.
Really.
It's so sad. Even when it's tough, even when they're fighting, it's so satisfying to read people just like being honest and asking questions and being curious about each other. And
it goes to show that you can still write a book with honest conversation.
There's still conflict.
You don't have to hide. Yeah, there's still conflict. You don't have to hide,
Yeah. And I think the movement and the way that they built their relationship and it changed was because of that dialogue that we were able to kind of witness as readers too. So like the story of a dad and his daughter, like that, it wasn't just like that, one note and then done. It was like building kind of really truly
and evolving.
Yeah.
Was Jinx your favorite character as well?
No.
Okay.
So I really don't like picking favorites.
Yeah, I hear you.
But
it's fun to talk about.
But here's who I wanted to hear more from and who I was always really interested in, Susie. So
I loved Susie so much.
Definitely.
Okay, I really loved
She was
Susie.
such a sleeper character.
Yes.
And she becomes a good big part of the story.
Truly like helped hold shit together. Like, I mean, it was there were moments where I was like, if Susie weren't there, like
Thank God for Susie.
Exactly. So I just really appreciated, I think Rufi did a really good job of, Susie obviously had a purpose and was there for a reason, but like didn't steal any sort of focus. And that left me kind of like, what's Susie up to? Like, what's her story, And that was just an element that was kind of removed from all of the drama, but like also just made me feel like, just curious in a different way throughout the book than the actual like plot that was happening.
Yeah. Because she starts out as this like cosplay loving roommate that's not really a part of the storyline. And then she's like taking the baby and holding the camera while they're shooting. So she like weasels her way in there to be such a supportive member of like their little family.
Well, and at the end, so this is also something that I both liked about the book, but found frustrating about the character Margot, but I think it was realistic that she is in this and in this situation, and she's kind of like tunnel visioning about, I mean, she's a 20-year-old and she's starting a romantic relationship with one of her clients. That's all like written. And she's trying to figure out this really tough world of OnlyFans and monetization of social media and how to do that, like without getting doxxed, without getting all of your accounts taken down on Instagram or whatever. But she isn't really then thinking about her roommate Susie and what she wants. She isn't thinking like, I wonder if my dad is doing okay. He just got out of rehab a month ago. And she kind of gets this tunnel vision, like, but it feels so realistic to the character of like her, where she's at. And she's just trying to get through this situation of, I have this baby and I have to figure out how to take care of it. And she's both like not reaching out for help, I think directly, like they do help her. But like when she's sick with the flu, her first thing is she's just like crawling to the bathroom and laying there thinking, well, this is it. And she doesn't even like knock on her dad's door because he's just moved in with her and they have not really established this relationship yet. She does not knock on Susie's door. And I was like, I was getting so frustrated, but I'm like, yeah, I think this is realistic to where she's at, where she feels like she's on this island. She's not really looking outside her island yet. And everything does kind of come together and she grows this family of support throughout the book. But that first really early trial, she's like not reaching out at all. And it then made me realize like, that's why she doesn't realize that her dad has been taking the pills that she's like, well, I'll just hold them for you so then you can't get addicted. She hasn't even been checking. Yeah. They're gone. And she doesn't know that he has been using and shooting up again. And she doesn't know what Susie even wants. She doesn't offer to pay Susie until Susie goes like, hey, I've been working a lot for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, it was a frustrating trait about the character to read, but it was, I think, very realistic to who she is.
Yeah. Completely.
And where she is at that time. And then she starts to learn like, oh, I have to. And then by the end of the book, she's asking Susie, like, what do you want?
Yeah. What are your terms?
Why are you here, actually? And Susie's like, I just want to be part of the team.
Yeah.
And it's like, great. Okay. And she's like, yep, you're in. Like, I'm going to pay you. We're going to do it. Cause she starts thinking about other people more too.
Yeah. Right.
And talks about that. Like, oh yeah, maybe being happy is about thinking about other people too.
And giving.
Yeah.
I loved Susie too. But I also really loved the mom character in that I hated her.
As a spicy character, Cheyenne.
She was very colorful and very terrible and very selfish. And I think like as a mom, it's hard to understand where she's coming from, being like so terrible to her daughter and not helping with the baby. But also there's one scene at the beginning where Margot is in the hospital and the nurse makes fun of the name that she names her baby, which is Bodhi. And her mom slaps the nurse across the face. I loved it so much. Like she was like redeeming herself before she needed to be redeemed, but that was a beautiful scene.
Agree.
Yeah. She doesn't do that again. It gets a lot worse, and that's fine. But I also feel like it added so much compassion as a reader for Margot, understanding that she didn't have her mom. Like,
and her mom was all she had growing up. And her mom like cared more about getting attention from the dad when he showed up sporadically.
Exactly.
Than thinking about like, well, Margot and I are in this unit. Margot was almost like a competitor for the dad's attention then. And yeah, it was tough to read about. Like, oh, that's why Margot feels like she's on an island, because she never had any kind of support.
Right.
I thought there were really interesting social commentary in this
too.
For
sure.
Up the wazoo. I mean, abortion right off the bat is what she's thinking about and having to consider at a very young age with very little guidance. And doesn't even really, she can't even explain to people when they say like, okay, so just get an abortion, and she doesn't want to, but she can't really articulate why. And she's kind of just pushing back on the idea.
Yeah, she thinks that she's being a good person because the society around her is saying this is what you're supposed to do.
But then also all the people around her are telling her to get the
an
abortion.
Yeah.
But society as a whole. But then also she realizes society as a whole is not set up to support a single mother.
Exactly.
And she's like, I can't pay for daycare while I go to work, because then I just pay all the money I made to the daycare person. And she's really dissecting some of this like, themes of, I would just say, certain income levels, and like talking about how waitressing for her was more dehumanizing than doing OnlyFans on her term. She was like, I'm guaranteed to be dehumanized every day when I'm waitressing, and at least on OnlyFans, I am setting terms. I actually have more control over the situation. I'm actually being compensated appropriately.
Well, and it speaks to like sex work in a whole, and as
yes, it's a job.
It's a job.
She has to keep explaining that to like the CPS officer and the lawyers, and like, this is my job.
Right. And I thought a lot about this and like, why is it perceived so negatively in our society? And a lot of that is because of the violence that surrounds it. But where is the violence coming from? And it's normally men.
Yes.
And like, why aren't we paying more attention to that than the negativity of sex work?
And then remote sex work, like cam girls, OnlyFans, is actually such a, like, she keeps talking about that. This is actually a really safe environment for my baby.
Yes.
I am not exposing myself to any of these people physically. They do not know where I am or where until she is doxxed. And there's a whole dramatic scene about that, which is directly related to people being hateful.
Right.
Who know her.
Right.
And trying to tear her down. And it's like, it's really, that was one of my other favorite Jinx scenes, is when Becca, her ex-friend, is like just yelling at her, or, calling her trash in her own kitchen. And Jinx just comes in and is like, and you're leaving. And just like pushes her out the door. Yeah. And I was like, thank you. Because obviously Margot was just going to sit there and take that.
Yes.
Because she feels like she kind of deserves it. Or,
yeah, he gently but assertively removed her,
says goodbye.
And you're leaving.
And like, I think that could be how Margot is like, wow, I can do this.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can remove these people physically from my interactions, but then like in the long term, like out of my mind, and they don't have to take up space in my brain and in my emotion and make me feel things. Like, they don't have that power.
I will say the CPS visit that happens
so
gave me
frustrating.
hives. I was like, This is so stressful. She like the needles that were hidden in the closet.
Yeah.
The fact that it was her first night she'd ever gone out and done anything for herself, and then the CPS person shows up the next day, and then when you find out who called the CPS people, which I guess we won't say for spoiler reasons, but what a
this is that social commentary.
Yes.
Like it's just everything is kind of stacked against you.
Yeah.
And there aren't those systems in place. And so you're creating a system that is basically going to allow you to survive this situation that is completely overwhelming and is even more so overwhelming because there's no support or no safety net. And I think like this is Margot's experience. You know, what you're doing is you're just trying to create a life that makes you go to the next day, to the next moment. And I think it really showcases how difficult that is to do for being a woman, and, you know, being a woman who is younger, and then on top of that, living in an online world, because our worlds are very online. And I think that exposure can make you feel very raw in a lot of ways. And I think, you know, being all of that, and then, you know, younger, and then having a child who you have to keep alive.
Yes. It's about survival.
Yeah.
And she doesn't give up. Like, I think that's a quality that is persistent in the narrative of this book. She's crying in her room, but 10 minutes later, she's doing what she needs to do to raise her child.
Yeah. And then there is this system, which is like the CPS thing. And it's like, this is the system that's in place to support, and quote, you know, like this young mom, like that just is.
And she had to go through so much effort in order to get that CPS woman off of her back. And
binders created these.
Yeah, they created a whole defense
documentation.
Hired a lawyer, got advice. I think to circle back to like maybe the broader themes, and like when we first started talking about, is this funny? Is it a comedy? Is it maybe it is kind of like a tragic comedy a little bit, but by the end is kind of a happy ending. And when I look at the arc of the book, it actually is kind of set up like a comedy where there is conflict, and like it all comes to a climax around this one day, right? Where like, you know, I didn't know that it's almost like a sitcom level. Like the CPS person is here and we have to clean up the house last minute, or, you know, they kind of, it's framed that way, and then has the happy ending with like the overall arc, but it doesn't feel like that along the way.
I think the one part that kind of always offered a little bit of levity and fun was her relationship with one of her clients, I guess.
Yes.
And like moments that just sort of were kind of pure release and just like laughter and a break. But I agree with you, Molly, that in general, like those moments were just kind of like there and then gone, rather than like a steady presence in the story.
I agree.
Yeah, genre is an interesting thing anyway.
Everybody go listen to Rufi Thorpe and Clancy in conversation at the Wisconsin Book Festival on October 19th.
6 p.m. Central Library.
Perfect.
But also all the other 4 days. Just a lot there for all of us to enjoy. And I'm really excited to see everyone there. All these
it's going to be a party.
Book Pop listeners.
Absolutely.
We'll see you there. We'll be at all the offsites, and then we will run over to the Central Library whenever we can to catch some of those events as well.
Thank you so much for being here, Jane.
Oh, thank you,
Jane.
Jamie and Molly. This was the best.
See you at the book festival. Book Pop Podcast is presented by Lake City Books. Produced by Jamie Anderson and Molly Fish. Edited by Jamie Anderson. Music and art by Lovick. Follow us on Instagram at bookpop.podcast. Find out more at our website, bookpoppodcast.com.